Have you ever watched someone walk out of a building and thought it was just another ordinary moment? What if that moment was the last time anyone ever saw them? I remember the sound first. The clatter of lockers, the shuffle of sneakers against waxed floors, the sudden burst of teenage laughter spilling into the hallway. Blessing slipped through that noise like she always did. Head down, notebook tucked tight against her chest, green backpack bouncing slightly as she moved. Nobody thought to look twice. Why would they? She was dismissed at 3 p.m. sharp. Routine. Predictable. Except this time, routine cracked. Ruth, her closest friend, swore she saw Blessing at the corner of the school gate. She said Blessing looked back, as if waiting for something or someone. But when Ruth blinked, when she turned her head to tie her shoelace, Blessing was no longer there. The sidewalk was busy. Cars honked. Parents shouted names. But in the space of a heartbeat, Blessing had dissolved into the noise. I can still see her mother, Happiness, replaying that afternoon in her mind like a broken tape. Her voice breaking when she said, "I should have been there. I should have come for her." And then there was Peter, the bus driver. He checked his list 3 times that day. He swore Blessing never stepped onto his bus. He said he remembered every face. But if he was so sure, why did his hands tremble when he told the police? No note, no warning, no fight, just absence. And that's where this story begins, with a question that keeps clawing at everyone who was there. How does a girl vanish in plain sight, in the middle of a crowded street, with dozens of witnesses who swear they saw nothing? What if the only person who claims they saw her admits they might have imagined it? At 3:12 p.m., a florist named Miriam Crow sat behind her shop counter, trimming the stems of white lilies. She swore Blessing passed by her window. She swore she heard the girl humming, a soft tune carried above the traffic. But when detectives pressed her, Miriam froze. She said maybe it wasn't real. Maybe it was just the sound of the wind catching her chimes. By 3:20, another account surfaced. A delivery driver, Samuel York, unloading crates near the corner store, insisted he saw a girl in a green backpack pause at the crosswalk. He said she kept glancing at the blinking red hand, like she was waiting for the light to change, but the light never did. When he looked again, the backpack was gone, and so was she. 2 witnesses, 2 contradictions, both etched in uncertainty. And then came the detail that made parents in that town stop sleeping at night. A cashier, Fiona Bell, who worked the small gas station across from the school, said she remembered a girl's voice. Not laughter, not a scream, just a faint whisper as the door swung open. "I don't want to go." Fiona turned, expecting to see a child with her mother. But no one was there. It was these fractured accounts, half memories, half confessions, that twisted the search into something darker. Was Blessing ever at that corner? Did the witnesses catch truth? Or were they grasping at ghosts of routine? And while the clock ticked forward, one question settled over the town like fog. If 3 separate people saw her, why does every story unravel when you look closer? What if the timeline itself is lying? The school's security guard swore he checked the cameras that evening. But when investigators pulled the footage, they discovered something chilling. A clean 12-minute gap. No error message. No corrupted file. Just silence where Blessing's final moments should have been. At the same time, a taxi driver came forward with a story. He claimed a girl carrying a green backpack flagged him down near the edge of town. She was quiet, kept her head low, and never gave her name. He swore it was Blessing, but in his account, she never asked to go home. She asked to be taken anywhere the road was empty. The contradiction tore through the town. If the cameras were missing, and if a stranger drove her away, was the dismissal even real? Was the town replaying a memory that had already been rewritten? The clock kept ticking, but the truth slipped further away. They said she walked home, but whose eyes really saw her? A street vendor, setting up her roasted corn stand that afternoon, swore Blessing never passed by. She remembered every child who bought from her that day, yet not one matched the girl with the green backpack. Then came a mechanic who worked near the junction. He insisted he saw Blessing step into a silver car, not a taxi, the door closing fast as though someone pulled her in. 2 voices, 2 stories, and neither matched the official record. Parents stopped sending their children alone. Teachers whispered about whether the dismissal log had been tampered with. The town's heartbeat shifted, from grief to fear, and under it all was a question no one wanted to speak aloud. Had someone inside the school rewritten the day itself? Sometimes, the loudest cries are the ones nobody hears. The janitor, Mr. Dalton, came forward with a trembling voice. He swore he saw a green backpack resting against the restroom sink when he finished mopping. By the time the officers arrived, the restroom was spotless. No bag, no trace, as if it had never existed. That same afternoon, a neighbor living across from the school reported something she couldn't silence. At 3:30, while sweeping her porch, she heard a child's voice echo down the street. It was calling for her mother, long, broken pleas that tightened the chest. But when she stepped out to look, the street lay empty, quiet, almost staged. 2 accounts, both unsettling. One rooted in objects that vanished, the other in a sound that left no source. The town began to feel unsteady, as if grief itself was bending their memories, or worse, someone was manipulating what they thought was real. And for the first time, parents asked themselves, were they searching for a missing girl, or chasing the fragments of a story already rewritten? When every alibi collapsed, the silence became louder than screams. At the edge of town, a gas station clerk pulled up the receipts from that afternoon. One stood out, time-stamped 3:42, for a bottle of water and a candy bar. The receipt carried Blessing's name, scrawled across the signature pad. But by then, according to the school, she was already gone. Then came the officers. Their testimonies, once firm, began to twist under questioning. One claimed the search began at 4. Another insisted it was closer to 5. Those 60 minutes became a canyon, swallowing certainty, swallowing trust. Parents shouted in meetings. Neighbors turned on neighbors. What began as a search for a child was unraveling into a war of voices, each one desperate to prove they were right, because to be wrong meant admitting the town itself had failed her. The fear wasn't quiet anymore. It sat heavy in every silence, thicker than words, louder than screams. The last sighting wasn't of a girl at all. It was of what she left behind. It wasn't a farmer in his fields. It was a man hauling pigs from one farm to another along the county road. His boots were caked with mud, his hands still smelling of feed, when he stopped near a ditch to adjust the ropes on his cart. That's when he saw it. Not scattered, not thrown. Blessing's green backpack rested upright, zipped, and placed too carefully on the ground, like someone wanted it found. The man said he didn't touch it. He just stared. The stillness around it felt heavier than the livestock he was carrying. It wasn't lost property. It wasn't an accident. It looked like a message. And that's where the story twists to its coldest truth. This was never about where Blessing walked after 3 p.m. It was about who made sure she'd never walk home again. Who placed that backpack there? And why was it waiting, untouched, on a lonely road only a farmhand would cross? Subscribe to the Veil of Secret for more stories that refuse to let go.